of a rogue planet, or you remain skeptical. Regardless of your belief on this topic, scientists are confident that a Planet X, or a Planet 9 as it is called by some, is out there. But since they haven't yet been able to locate its position, they are asking the public for assistance in locating the giant planet. Scientists at the Australian National University are publicly releasing images taken by the SkyMapper telescope at the university's Siding Spring Observatory in regional New South Wales. They are doing this in the hopes that Planet 9 makes an appearance. The telescope has been doing a digital map of the southern skies, producing hundreds of thousands of images. Therefore, they have invited the public, everyone, to access the images and try and find this planet. The project is similar to a public search launched by NASA called Backyard Worlds, which I spoke of extensively in a published video dated February 22nd of this year. The hypothesized Planet 9 remains mysterious, but scientists concluded that the planet existed after an analysis of Pluto's orbit, which may have been impacted by the gravity of another planet. Australian astrophysicist Dr. Brad Tucker emphasized that a calculation conducted 1 year ago indicated that in order to explain Pluto's orbit, you would have to place a supersized planet in this rough position, a theory that makes perfect sense. Neptune was actually predicted the exact same way, so there are historical reasons to believe that this theory is correct. For their part, intrigued stargazers haven't been looking up at the sky to find the planet. Rather, they're turning to their computers. A few days ago, the Zooniverse website posted photos of the southern sky. Since then, more than 30,000 volunteers have been studying those photos thoroughly, trying to spot the enigmatic Planet 9. They are calling it Spot the Difference, which includes observing an object moving through space over time. If you see something, you indicate the observation. Then the website calculates whether the object is on a good orbit. It then sends the information to the Australian astronomers, who will then follow the object with their telescope at the Siding Spring Observatory. They hope to complete the high probability dataset within the next several months. So something is definitely going on in our solar system that now includes astronomers from both NASA and the Australian National University, located in the southern hemisphere, where the Planet X system is believed to be approaching. I indicated in my last video dated March 23rd that I firmly believe that the newly discovered TRAPPIST-1 solar system and the Nemesis star system have coincidental similarities. In other words, they are probably one and the same system, with one notable contradiction. The system is not 39 light years from Earth, as NASA claims, but rather much closer, as recent evidence would indicate. There will certainly be a difference of opinion on whether NASA is being honest with the public on this subject. But even the most sophisticated debunkers cannot refute the evidence that suggests the presence of a large celestial body in space. It is, after all, NASA who is taking credit for the discovery of TRAPPIST-1, which they claim consists of 7 planets. It is therefore conceivable that this mini solar system that they claim exists could be harboring the mysterious planet known as Nibiru Planet X. If our objective is only to discredit the research and discovery for whatever reasons, then we are only cheating ourselves in our quest to seek the truth. So there must be some common denominator that brings all factions together in an effort to locate and discover what scientists now believe exists in our solar system. The idea that TRAPPIST-1 could actually be the Nemesis system is just one theory, but it makes sense if you compare the similarities that describe these systems. But there's also another theory that makes absolute sense. Is Planet 9 really Planet X? There is overwhelming evidence to support this theory. Here then, once again, are the similarities. On December 30th, 1983, the Washington Post published an incredible story that indicated that a mysterious heavenly body had been found in the direction of the constellation Orion. Then 33 years later, on December 30th, 2016, NASA claims that at aphelion, Planet 9 would be in the general location of the Orion and Taurus constellations. Do you notice the similarity in these two statements? I recently received a message from a subscriber who began by saying, "All of today's news headlines are just a distraction from the real problem, Planet X." So in reality, there are numerous stories and videos that have emerged that suggest that Planet X is lurking out there, has been rebranded as Planet 9, which confirms some very old news stories about its discovery. With Planet X, or Nibiru, still called conspiracy theory or fake news by the mainstream media, we're now asking ourselves if the biggest cover-up of all time is about to come crashing down, while reminding you of the two 1983 stories published by both the Washington Post and the New York Times. So the search for Planet X continues, rebranded by this BBC news story as the search for Planet 9. The New York Times, as indicated, had published in early 1983 a story called "Clues Get Warm in the Search for Planet X," in which they reported something out there beyond the farthest reaches of the known solar system seems to be tugging at Uranus and Neptune. Some gravitational force keeps perturbing the two giant planets, causing irregularities in their orbits. The force suggests a presence far away and unseen, a large object that may be the long-sought Planet X. Reporting at that time upon the launching of the infrared astronomical satellite that would conduct a wide-ranging survey of nearly all of the sky over the following 6 to 8 months, detecting sources of not only ordinary light, but of infrared radiation invisible to the human eye and absorbed by the atmosphere. Scientists hoped they'd be able to chart thousands of previously undetected objects in the sky, with a dim hope of finding Planet X. 11 months later, on December 30th of 1983, the Washington Post published a story called "Possibly as Large as Jupiter," within which they reported in their first paragraph a heavenly body possibly as large as the giant planet Jupiter, and possibly so close to Earth that it would be part of this solar system, has been found in the direction of the constellation Orion by an orbiting telescope aboard the U.S. infrared astronomical satellite. The same U.S. infrared astronomical satellite that the New York Times story had mentioned would be searching for Planet X had found a heavenly body scientists described then as "so mysterious is the object that astronomers do not know if it is a planet, a giant comet, a nearby protostar that never got hot enough to become a star, a distant galaxy so young that it is still in the process of forming its first stars, or a galaxy so shrouded in dust that none of the light cast by its stars ever gets through. Talk of Planet X soon vanished from the mainstream media, and for many years until this day, those who spoke of Nibiru or Planet X were ridiculed, called tinfoil hat conspiracy theorists, and much worse, by those who are unable to grasp the existence of another celestial body in our solar system that just may be biblical in respect to our future. So again, I must say, do you see the connection between these two mainstream media reports and the recently announced discovery of new planets and a new solar system? 2016 brought us the hypothetical, quote, Planet 9, a massive, not yet discovered celestial body that the mainstream media reluctantly reported after Caltech scientists stated that a massive outer planet is the likeliest explanation for the similarities in orbits of 6 different objects. Death of Pluto, scientists explained how Planet 9 could be responsible for many of the mysteries our solar system still poses. In yet another coincidental similarity, Space.com published a story on October 19th of 2016 called Did the Mysterious Planet 9 Tilt the Solar System? That very same day, Astronomy.com published an article entitled Planet 9 May Be Responsible for Tilting the Sun. 4 days later, on October 23rd, Forbes ran a story called Mysterious Planet 9 May Be Pulling Our Solar System Out of Whack. Were all of these publications by mainstream media sources just fake news stories? I mentioned that NASA had indicated in December of last year that Planet 9, if it exists, which scientists now believe is probable, would be located in the constellation Orion. So in another coincidental similarity, Planet 9 is located in the same general area that the Washington Post reported the mysterious heavenly body was way back in 1983. What the New York Times actually called Planet X before everything went silent on this subject. So once again, you must ask yourself, is Planet 9 the same massive body as Planet X? If it has a 10 to 20,000 year orbit, as they claim, it would be in the same vicinity of the sky today as it was back in 1983. So here is an interesting twist in this continuing story. Scientists have invited both amateur and professional public astronomers to scan the skies for the elusive Planet 9.
Pluto may not be a planet anymore, and you may not agree with that. But we now have the chance to understand why. A new potential 9th planet. But to do so, we're going to need your help.
We've been using Sky Mapper, our robotic telescope at the Australian National University Siding Spring Observatory, to produce the first digital map of the entire southern sky.
We've taken literally hundreds of thousands of images of the southern sky, and hiding in amongst these images we think might possibly be Planet 9.
But we need your help to search for these images in order to find it.
Together, we may finally end the debate about Pluto being a planet and discover the first planet in our own solar system in more than 150 years.
But why call it Planet 9 rather than its real name, Nibiru or Planet X? Here is one possible and meaningful explanation. If you were to call it by its real name, the unaware masses would have a much different perspective of the biblical planet than if they were merely searching for information on Planet 9. Does this make any sense? You bet it does, and for very good reasons for those who control the masses. Our list of coincidental similarities is now on a roll. If the orbit of Planet 9 is believed to take 10 to 20,000 years to complete, what then happened to Earth the last time this monster came our way some 10,000 years ago? If we were to go back to the floods of Noah, then what would a planet that scientists claim may be responsible for tilting our sun and the solar system be able to do to the axial tilt of planet Earth should it come for a return pass? Daniel Whitmire of the University of Arkansas indicated that Planet 9 could be responsible for a series of mass extinctions that already occurred in our history by casting Kuiper Belt objects into the inner solar system. These would be the same objects that the Washington Post referred to as perturbing in their 1983 story. As it turns out, the Caltech astronomers responsible for this discovery quite appropriately referred to this planet as the perturber. Here is something that will help explain what is happening in our solar system that has great implications for the citizens of planet Earth. A mysterious phenomenon that has been happening that involves the solar winds becoming so dense that even NASA can no longer censor them. These are extreme abnormalities of the magnetosphere and significant radiation from the sun. The YouTube contributor who has been monitoring this has indicated that this does not appear to be a glitch, as it steadily returned to a normal flow rather than going blank or suddenly changing shots, as often happens when there is a glitch in the equipment. So let's examine this as he displays both normal and abnormal monitoring of the magnetosphere on this particular date, March 14th. The bewildering race to discover Planet 9 provides credible evidence that NASA scientists are aware of something that all of us do not know, and what they know falls directly in line with that recent wave of energy that struck the Earth. Some of you may know or heard of Bob Fletcher. He has covered various aspects of the elite's preparations for a huge event, including the movement of large amounts of long-term survival food to secretive underground facilities. He has also reported why the 1% that are the elite have been preparing for a biblical event for many years. Here is one thing that many of you may not know. In 2016 alone, the interest in underground bunkers had risen by a whopping 700%. Overall sales of these bunkers grew by 300% since the November presidential election. Yes, the elite are gearing up for the apocalypse. There is many real anxieties that include nuclear warfare, a disease pandemic, natural catastrophes, and even the alleged coming of Planet X Nibiru. They are being built everywhere. In Poland, concrete security bunkers called the Safe House are being constructed. In Kansas, 161 protective domes called survival condos have been built. In South Dakota, a survival community is being planned to accommodate 5,000 people. In Germany, bunkers are being built that are said to be apocalyptic proof. In Texas, the sale of high-end underground shelters has risen dramatically in the past few months. Here is an example of how the elite are planning on riding out the storm that is coming. You may find this to be quite disturbing.
Everything's been quiet all afternoon. Fish the green inside the silo and perfect. Thank you. Thank you.
So it's evident in all that we see and read about that something ominous is on the horizon, is happening whether we wish it to happen or hope that it will just all go away. NASA and the media have all but admitted that it is coming. So has the whole world gone crazy on this subject? Well, according to Harvard psychiatrist Patricia Wallace, Nibiru is an addiction, a true disease that has inflicted millions of people who fantasize about a distant celestial object. Dr. Wallace believes these patients suffer from a debilitating condition, a diagnosable ailment that she calls Nibiru addiction. The disease, she said, manifests in 3 stages. The first stage is called Nibiru awareness. This typically occurs when a susceptible person is exposed to the word Nibiru or Planet X, often through word of mouth or read on internet conspiracy forums. During this stage, the individual is still a fully functional member of society, but in the back of his mind, he is constantly thinking about Planet X and how it will destroy the Earth. He doesn't speak of this openly or publicly, but may communicate anonymously with other believers. Over time, Nibiru awareness may escalate to the second stage, called Nibiru addiction, a deeper pathology that seizes the patient's psyche with overwhelming thoughts and visions of Nibiru. They may spend hours upon hours prowling internet forums, believing they are conducting Nibiru research to the betterment of humanity. They present compelling arguments with absolutely no evidence. In rare cases, Nibiru addiction escalates to what is called a Nibiru psychosis, by which point the patient has lost touch with reality. They perceive themselves as Nibiru messiahs, part of a savior movement dedicated to warning the world about an impending Nibiru apocalypse that will eradicate all life on Earth. Dr. Wallace has even petitioned the Centers for Disease Control to recognize Nibiru addiction as a potentially pandemic disease. Now, she said she had to quit treating Nibiru patients because, in her own words, she was beginning to have personal visions of Nibiru. Imagine that. A professional psychiatrist who is treating patients with the so-called Nibiru disease was actually herself beginning to believe it was true. So here is an example of an educated person attempting to make a valid argument about a subject that has been controversial and highly ridiculed since the inception of the Washington Post article way back in 1983, claiming that the planet has been discovered by an infrared telescope. But as you can see here, her conclusions are very questionable. First of all, she fails to account for scientific evidence that proves Nibiru's reality. Photographs taken from the Hubble and the South Pole telescopes, testimony from authenticated whistleblowers, and notable scientists that have mysteriously disappeared. So if you were to take this person's medical evaluation with any sense of credibility, you would have to conclude that she is probably out to make some sort of a name for herself, rather than to establish any basis for the existence of a heavenly body in our solar system. But there is one thing that is certain in all of this commotion about what's real and what's not. The debate over Nibiru's existence has persisted for over 30 years and shows no signs of ending anytime soon, regardless of what anyone may say. The truth is out there, and it will be found. Third week of March 2017. Back in September of 2015, some of you may recall this story and video capture of what they call the mystery planet floating above the sun. The short video clip, which was posted on YouTube, was believed to have been taken in Florida and apparently was showing a huge, brightly shining planet-like object in the sky as the sun was setting. The sky watcher zeroes in on the unusual orb, and then the camera focuses on what is unmistakably the moon on the other side of the sky. The camera then pans back across to the sun, and the brilliantly bright orb is still there, just above and to the left of the sun. The video was viewed tens of thousands of times on YouTube, but still today there is no explanation of what the planet is or how it could have appeared. Commenters on the site gave various explanations for this sighting, the usual litany of "this is what it is," without providing any evidence to substantiate their claims. Whether in support or in denial of the strange sighting in the sky, there is obviously something very strange and still unexplained about what's appearing in the skies all over the world. So here is the short video clip. Watch and listen carefully to what the sky observer has to say.
Okay, so here I am out here in September, and as you can see, there's obviously a really very clear planet that is right north of the sun. And wow, I would love to say it was the moon, but since the moon happens to be right here on the opposite side, there's no way it is. And since we all have been taught in school that Mercury and Venus do not show up, oh, just look at that planet just beaming and shining right now. Somebody tell me what it is.
You may be amazed at this, just as this person was, or maybe not. What we see and what we believe to be real is and always will be in the eyes of the beholder. Yes, there is a great deal of speculation. Everyone formulates their own opinions and ideas, but nothing is really set in stone. There is a scientific way of looking at the world, and there's a religious way, and the two very seldom intertwine. Each is unique in its own theories and beliefs, but it's really up to each one of us to determine what is real and what isn't. So here we are in 2017, and what do we see? The sky anomalies continue to increase. Our weather is more extreme than it has ever been. The crust of the earth continues to warm, causing ever-increasing volcanic activity. Even those that have been dormant for hundreds, even thousands of years, are suddenly roaring to life. The earth is opening, causing massive fissures to spread across the land, while the earth is in the midst of a sinkhole apocalypse. We know that all of these events are happening on a grand scale. What we don't know for certainty is what lies at the wake of these momentous events. Why are all of these sudden changes taking place at this time? Why is it that no one seems to have a real answer that can be accepted by both the scientific and the religious communities? I've mentioned on numerous occasions that the surest and most convincing way to determine if something ominous is approaching the Earth is to continue observing the numbers and the severity of seismic and volcanic events. The more violent they may be and the higher the frequency of occurrence, this will be an indicator on whether there is an outside influence that is disturbing the magnetic core of our Earth, and thus causing a collapse of the magnetosphere and the protective shield that surrounds our planet. If there is such a force, it will create a tilt of the Earth's axis, thus creating a wobbling effect, which will lead to odd weather patterns around the globe, such as what we saw this winter in places like the southern Mediterranean islands, the Arabian Desert, and in New Zealand, where record amounts of snow were recorded. If we are to accept that global warming is real, then we must determine if the change in climate conditions is the result of man-made polluting of the air, chemtrailing, and various forms of weather manipulation, or whether there is an outside force at work causing these sudden and drastic changes to occur. There is another more important matter that is weighing on the minds of many scientists at this time, and that has to do with mass extinction. With the sudden surge in extreme weather and violent earth changes, there is a growing consensus that the earth is spiraling out of control. It's heading towards an inevitable decline of plant and animal life, which will lead to famine and disease among the world's most populous communities and countries on this planet. It's already happening. Humans, through their own lack of knowledge and understanding, and by the consequences of their actions, are powerless to stop it from happening. So in essence, if you do not have the eyes to see what is happening, then you are blind to everything that is taking place in the world around you. Periodic mass extinctions have happened on Earth as indicated in the global fossil records, and according to at least one astrophysicist and scientist, it could be linked to a suspected rogue planet. How ironic that the new information that is being leaked to the public through various sources seem to indicate that an exoplanet or a binary star system is responsible for many of the events that took place in our Earth's history. The new information pertaining to a Planet 9, or one that resembles Nibiru, is more mysterious than its own origins. After all, not too many people know the true details of Nibiru and why it exists in our solar system. It all tends to coincide with what happened in the Earth's past and what is happening now. Dr. Mikao Kaku, a renowned physicist, has brought attention to the very real possibility of another mass extinction in our future. Now, he makes no mention of exoplanets as a determining factor in his interpretation, but the fact that our planet is in dire straits are emphasized in his comments in a way that many of us can understand and agree with. Let's listen in.
Well, so far, if you analyze the last few hundred years of life on the Earth, human activity apparently has wiped out 1.4% of all plant and animal species, and it is 100 to 1,000 times faster than normal because of human population, development, pollution, overharvesting. And if you take a look at a zoo, many of the zoo animals that our children love, we may find them going extinct. The tiger, for example, may go extinct. Many of the familiar zoo animals, bears, and realize that 18,000 species are at risk. Climate change is also involved in this thing. Independent of where climate change comes from, we see that the seasons are changing. Summers are getting longer. Winters are getting shorter on average. And we always say that the early bird catches the worm, but that assumes that the worm and the bird are synchronized. Many of these cycles, the natural cycles, are being thrown into disarray, meaning, for example, droughts in China going on right now, perhaps famine in certain areas. So we humans cannot be divorced from what's happening in the natural world. Well, evolution says survival of the fittest, and so far we humans are among the fittest. But we are also at the top of the food chain, the top of the pyramid, and it wouldn't take much to dislodge us from being at the top of the food chain. Well, in science fiction, of course, the insects take over. But look at something very simple. We are dependent on just a few crops, wheat, rice, and just a few crops, and if a blight were to wipe out these crops, then a huge chunk of humanity would starve to death because we're so dependent on just a few plants and animals for our existence. We should be wary of overharvesting. For example, overharvesting the oceans. We have drag nets, which in principle could drag the entire oceans. That's how efficient our technology is. Also, wheat production we have to worry about because water is the key to wheat production, and there are going to be perhaps water wars in the future. Well, there'll always be water on the Earth. The question is the cost and what it would take to extract it, to desalinate it, to divert it, to irrigate. And so the cost of certain kinds of commodities could start to rise. So just because we're at the top of the food chain doesn't mean that we're invulnerable to what's happening outside, where biodiversity is being threatened.
In early 2016, scientists finally admitted that the so-called Planet 9 was causing our solar system to tilt, which may explain why the planets and constellations appear to be out of alignment. There is a general consensus that the spin axis is about 6 degrees off vertical. If their consensus is correct, then the assumption that an outside force is at play that is believed to be 10 times the mass of Earth may indeed be accurate. Astronomers think that at one time in the distant past, the so-called Planet 9 may have collided with another planet or object, possibly forming the asteroid belt, before sending the world into an oblong orbit. The new data collected by astronomers actually substantiates the late Zecharia Sitchin's research of what he called the 10th planet, or Planet X. Here then is some food for thought. In August of 2006, the International Astronomical Union downgraded Pluto's status from a planet to a dwarf planet. Pluto had been considered the 9th planet for as long as any of us can remember. So why would they suddenly decide to change its status? One plausible reason for the change was to allow the public to use the search term Planet 9 rather than Planet X, which already had a massive amount of information in the search archives. So what we have here is one more arsenal in the NASA book of tricks to divert your attention from what you need to know. Here is something you should know about the rogue planet. It wasn't the public who pegged the name Planet X. It was the government who named it long before they decided to change the planet status of Pluto. Once the links are connected, then things begin to become much clearer with respect to Planet X and the evidence that supports its existence. Here are the links that substantiate this claim. Over the last few years, scientists, top scholars, and universities, in conjunction with other peer-reviewed studies, have documented the fact that the Moon, Sun, and Earth are not in their proper positions, as things may seemingly be unraveling in our solar system. Now, I've gotten emails and messages from many of you who, through your own personal observation, have stated that this is exactly what you are witnessing at this time. There has been a change in weather, seasons, tides, volcanic and tectonic activity. There is no doubt this is happening. If you frequent the Skywatch Media Facebook page, there are a number of video clips that document the tremendous changes that are now occurring. It's there for you to see if you care to take the time to watch and listen. For years, governments have been aware of an approaching celestial body, a brown dwarf star, and its 3,600-year cycle of devastation, as outlined in ancient Sumerian cylinder seals and other ancient documents. This excerpt from the Washington Post article dated December 30th of 1983 substantiates this claim. Moreover, Dr. Jerry Negenhauer, the IRAS chief scientist for California's Jet Propulsion Laboratory and the director of the Polymer Observatory for the California Institute of Technology, said in an interview the following: "All I can tell you is that we don't know what it is." In 2011, secretive and coded military drills were run in preparation for what's coming. In fact, the Elenin drill involved testing a massive worldwide network that would connect and go live in real time in the event a major worldly disaster were to take place. To boot, agencies such as NASA have already prepped their on and off world personnel for such an event. They are now conducting these drills on a regular basis and have been doing so since 2011. An excerpt from a peer-reviewed paper by Lorenzo Lorio, a Cornell University astronomer, documents that the orbital pattern and tilt of the moon has changed, likely signifying the presence of a hidden celestial object. There it is. A Cornell University astronomer has admitted in this statement that they themselves are now looking into the possibility of Planet X type scenarios being real, as they themselves are dumbfounded by the data. So, is it possible NASA is hiding something? What about all of the newly discovered planets in this mini solar system, which has been quietly announced just recently? What more can be said about what we know to be true? The proof is in the details. In closing, here is something that is strikingly odd that was recently posted to our Facebook page, which garnered a great deal of attention. On March 12th, the Cleveland EarthCam recorded a series of time frames, beginning at 8:05 p.m. and ending at 8:20. They appear to show the moon rising over Lake Erie, followed by an unidentified orb resembling a planet. There was considerable speculation as to what we had actually seen here. We know from investigating this phenomenon that it was not fabricated, because the frames are available for review in the EarthCam archives. So whatever it may actually have been was picked up by the camera and time-stamped to the digital archives. There was some thought that it could be a lens reflection, but we couldn't find multiple instances of this happening every time that the moon would rise from this particular location. Coincidentally, one of our Facebook followers happened to run across a video that was posted back on February 23rd of 2016, which is almost 1 year ago to the date, which shows the same thing in time-lapse. So there are definitely strange things happening on our planet that just cannot be fully explained. That is why it is so important to fully investigate and thoroughly examine everything that suggests the presence of a heavenly body. As I said, it's important to determine what is real and what isn't. This is how we can best present evidence to substantiate our findings of a rogue planet or a binary star system. The more we search for the truth, the better our chances of finding it, and then establishing a basis for its.
In February 2016, David Meade prophesied a cataclysmic end for mankind. Meade claimed to have scientific data proving that a mysterious planet, Planet X, is on course to crash into us, transforming our planet into a literal hell on Earth. Meade forecast the collision to take place in late 2017. If that's true, then the next few months may be mankind's last. Research scientist and author David Meade believes that Planet X will collide with the Earth in October 2017. Meade claims that the evidence for this is overwhelming. Meade is convinced that the planet will hurtle into the South Pole and destroy all life on Earth. He calls Planet X Nibiru and says it orbits around a second sun in our solar system. The star allegedly has 7 planets and moons orbiting it. Meade says it has not been spotted by scientists yet because of the unusual angle at which it is traveling. He says that because of this anomalous trajectory, it can only be seen from high altitude above South America or the South Pole. But the gravitational pull of this imminent collision is already being felt on Earth. Meade points to the spate of unexplained volcanic eruptions throughout Japan, Indonesia, New Zealand, and Peru. He argues that these are directly caused by disruption to forces in Earth's atmosphere by Nibiru's gravity. He also says Earth's soaring temperatures and the apparent proliferation of sinkholes throughout 2016 are signs that we are feeling the impact of Planet X as it nears. Meade claims evidence for the crash stretches back millennia. He quotes passages from the Bible, like Revelation chapter 12, which describes a sign in heaven of a woman clothed with the sun, with the moon under her feet, and the crown of 12 stars on her head. Apparently, using complex computer modeling software, Meade showed that tracking the movements of the cosmos pinpointed the moment of this sign of stars at September the 23rd, 2017. That date will be the first time in a century that the constellations of Serpens Ophiuchus, Leo, and Virgo align. Meade says this triumvirate is also the cosmological arrangement depicted in the 12th chapter of Revelation. It is therefore the time marker for the start of the apocalypse. According to Meade, the global elite are secretly preparing for the disaster and have constructed a series of underground bunkers to protect themselves. Unfortunately, much of the justification for Meade's argument comes from religious rather than scientific sources. Biblical verses are open to interpretation and can certainly not be taken as fact. A lot of proof for Meade's argument comes from his own visions and dreams. Indeed, he admits that he used the Bible to find the date of the apocalypse, which in turn prompted his investigations into Planet X. The logic of his theory is circular. Moreover, scientific bodies refute Meade's claims as outlandish and preposterous. In response to online hysteria over these doomsday predictions, NASA issued a sobering statement. They said, "Stories about wayward planets are an internet hoax. There is no factual basis for these claims. If Planet X were real and headed for an encounter with the Earth, astronomers would have been tracking it for at least the past decade, and it would be visible by now to the naked eye." Meanwhile, the unusual natural phenomena that Meade claims are proof of disrupted atmospheric forces have much simpler and proven earthly causes. The global heat waves that made 2016 the hottest year on record have now been accounted for by climate change accelerated by man-made pollution. The sinkholes are the result of permafrost melting due to global warming, and the volcanic eruptions have the usual scientific explanations. It is also not the first time the hypothetical planet Nibiru has been expected to crash into Earth. Previous forecasts claimed Planet X would destroy us in 2003, 2012, and 2015. Given that each of these predictions failed to come true, the likelihood of Meade being accurate is very low. Nevertheless, it is striking that NASA have just confirmed the existence of a solar system merely 39 light-years away from our own. TRAPPIST-1 consists of a star and 7 planets orbiting around it. Although it is tempting to draw parallels between this newly discovered solar system and Meade's theory, we must remember that 39 light-years is very far away. Meade's apocalyptic vision is frightening to consider. However, his theory lacks the necessary scientific evidence to make it plausible. If Planet X or Nibiru even exists, there's no reason to believe it will destroy Earth.
Corey Powell's editor-at-large, Discover Magazine, here to look at these images. Nice to see you, Corey.
Yeah.
What is this?
Weather map on the sun. You'll notice part of the sun is missing. So this is a picture of the sun in ultraviolet rays. What you're seeing is this is 3.5 million degree plasma erupting from the surface of the sun. This part that's missing, the reason it's dark, is that whole chunk of the sun basically ripped off, blew out, and is coming our way at about 2 million miles an hour.
Our way.
Our way.
That doesn't sound good.
Well, I mean, this kind of thing happens all the time, but you don't very often see something that big. So I'm going to go all Carl Sagan on you here for a second. So this is about 80 times as wide as the Earth. If you're looking at the Earth on this scale, it's about that large. So this is an incredible chunk of the sun that's flying out. What happens when it hits our planet, it causes auroras, it wiggles the magnetic field. The thing you really worry about is it can disrupt your GPS, it can mess with your communication satellites, it can mess with your power lines.
Is that like a solar flare? Or?
So yeah, so these hot spots are where things are, it's where the things are really kind of intense and bubbling. This is where it's basically reached the point where it just kind of completely blew off. You're actually not seeing the hot gas here because it's no longer on the sun. It's coming into our face.
Did we ever know this before? Or did we not take note of it?
Well, we know it's really very recent that we've even been able to see these things, and so we kind of knew, you know, there's this constant low-level thing, you know, a few $1 million a year damages, more or less, just our solar satellites, power lines, things. We knew that the sun was messing with us, and we didn't exactly know why. Now you see why. And the real worry is, this is actually, believe it or not, this is a small one. This is a minor one.
Wow. Can you tell us what this means then?
So what this means is, this is what the sun does all the time, and we don't really know why it does it. There's an 11-year cycle of solar activity, and right now we're going into a time of peak activity. And that's when all those things I was talking about before, you know, we really need to watch for your power lines, your satellites, for all that.
But you just said something there. You said it happens all the time. If it happens all the time, is there a real risk to us? Or are we just noticing now?
Well, so there's two parts. I mean, there's the stuff like this. Like I said, this is actually not even a particularly bad one. So this is what happens all the time that we weren't really noticing, that now we're starting to understand and forecast. But they're much more intense ones. There was a giant solar flare in 1962, right before we really had a whole lot of satellites, an even bigger one in 1859. Wow. And if something like that happened again, that could cause a global blackout.
You always talk about, solar flares as the biggest danger on a large scale. So we will see. Corey, thank you. Excellent explanation.
Oh, well, thank you.
And we'll call you Carl Sagan next time, okay? Cool?
Yeah, millions and millions of Earths would fit in this picture.
Yeah, nice.
Government health officials say heat waves are the deadliest extreme weather event. During the last decade, more than 150 people died from heat stroke in New York City alone. The Centers for Disease Control says people with chronic conditions, including obesity, are susceptible to the heat and need to stay cool and hydrated when temperatures rise. Children in Los Angeles are drinking less soda. LA County researchers say the percentage of kids who drink at least one soda every day dropped 14% between 2007 and 2011. Doctors say campaigns to educate parents about the negative effects of soda appear to be working. And Japanese researchers have engineered a strain of rice that may stop a common illness. The scientists added an antibody to rice that can fight off rotavirus. The sickness can lead to extreme dehydration, especially in developing countries. There is a vaccine, but doctors say the engineered rice would be a cheap and effective way to prevent rotavirus. Those are some of today's top health stories. I'm Vanita Nair, CBS News, New York.
More than 640 people have been killed by a heat wave in India. The temperatures reached nearly 50 degrees Celsius in some regions. Indian authorities have warned that the conditions are set to continue over the coming days. Let's get Tom Sater on this. Tom, what led to the deaths of so many people? I mean, 50 degrees Celsius is extremely hot, but it's not uncommonly hot in some parts of the world for months at a time. So what went so wrong, tragically wrong here?
This happens every year as far as the heat building in India because it's pre-monsoon heat, but it's extreme in this case, Hala, because in some states of India it's been going on since the middle of April, but it's the nighttime low temperatures that are staying extremely high. It is so tragic. I mean, we have deaths, obviously, from natural severe weather elements, but these are preventable. The symptoms coming out to us, of course, and we've all seen those who may have suffered from heat exhaustion or heat stroke. The pictures I'm showing you from India are from all different areas. First, we were in South Central in Hyderabad. Here is Allahabad. This is North Central. It's kind of south of New Delhi. This is Jammu. This is up into the north. All of these states are reporting fatalities where the temperatures for days on end have been building into the 40s. This is on the East Coast in Bhubaneswar. I could show you a picture that looks just like that on the extreme eastern side of the country in Rajasthan or Gujarat. It is 1 in the morning, and the temperature has just dropped from 39 down to 40. I mean, this is over 100 degrees. So, again, the heat building, and it's all over the entire region. We're waiting for the monsoon rains, which are still out in the Bay of Bengal. Now, eventually, they will start their northern progression and cool things down. But the heat has been building faster than we have typically seen in years past in many states well up to the north that are typically not used to this. But it's being felt across the entire country. So let's run through a few factors for you. The numbers are already high enough this time of year, but when you start to tag on 3 to even 5 degrees higher than normal, what we're finding is it's most of the fatalities, and this just jumped from 430 to over 640 in the last 12 hours. They're still assessing the damage here, of course, when it comes to the fatalities, but these numbers of what we've seen just in the last 24 hours, even in Pakistan as well, 48. But we have also seen that they're over 50 years old, working class, mainly elderly, but we're also getting reports out of Calcutta where a couple of taxi drivers lost their life in the extreme heat. So they're pulling all taxis off the road that do not have any air conditioning for at least 5 hours. But look at the numbers. They're going to continue to be in the 40s in Ahmedabad, in Nagpur. This is where we first started noticing it. In Nagpur is 45, 46, 47, and kept building each day. But when you have nighttime lows that are still in the 30s, that's when it gets tough. Areas of red extreme heat. Now, this map for tomorrow is much better than it was yesterday when we had areas of red to the north. But we're waiting really for these rains to move in, Holland. Until they do, I think we're going to be following, again, this story to continue for days on end because usually it begins June 1st, but it's going to take a month even to make its way to the north. Plus, it's an El Nino year, and that seems to stifle the rainfall in India. Could be a bad year for the monsoons. Let's hope not.
Hello there. During the summer months, many of us crave a good sunny and dry spell and a little bit of warmth to go with it. Now, the best weather setups for that to occur where high pressure is either based to the east of us and we drag in hot air off a warming near continent, or indeed with that high pressure system right over the top of us, a steady build-up of warmth over a number of days as the air stagnates and just circles around gently across the UK. But there does become a point where that heat has more of an impact than just a rise in barbecue and ice cream sales. It can also have an impact on health as well. And when that comes into play, the Met Office issue heatwave warnings across parts of the UK. Now, for those to be issued, we need a few trigger temperatures to be reached. And those trigger temperatures are very much dependent on where you are in the UK. By daytime, they have to be somewhere between 28 and 32 degrees, if not higher. And they have to be followed by nighttime temperatures as well, somewhere in the region of 15 to 18 degrees, if not more. Now, when we get these over a prolonged spell of time, this is where it can have an increasing impact on the health of those with chronic illnesses, the young and the elderly. And for more details on how heat impacts your health, head to the NHS website. But don't forget, throughout the summer months, you can always see where the temperatures are going for where you live on the BBC Weather website and, of course, on the BBC Weather app. Bye for now.
So many of you are talking about the skies over Kern County lighting up with a meteor shower tonight. The National Weather Service confirming just moments ago that big ball of fire in the sky was in fact a meteor.
23 ABC's Andrew Worth joins us now from our live center with video and pictures our viewers are sending us right now. Andrew?
That's right, Tim and Jackie here in the Live Center. We have been getting many posts, as you said, Tim. National Weather Service out of Reno confirming that this is a meteor shower expected to start tonight and go through Friday night. Let's take a look at some of these posts here. This was from Dina McCarthy. As you can see, I'll zoom in real quick. Two big balls of fire coming across the sky right there. Zoom back out. Take a look at this next one. You can see a tree kind of make that figure out there. Again, two big balls of fire coming across. There, just one. That's Rodolfo Cruz. Thank you, Rodolfo. We'll take a look at this video now. I'll make that a little bit larger. As you can see right here, single ball of fire coming across the sky. Very good video coming in there from one of our viewers. We'll get out of this one real quick and go to our next one. The next one coming in from Nick Gonzalez. One of the best pictures that we've seen. You can see that was zoomed in and enhanced just a little bit, but two very big balls of fire coming across there, and that is an awesome picture. Thank you from Nick Gonzalez. And then one of our last videos here, another one coming across the sky. Some people down here. Just a huge ball of fire, and we thank everybody for Facebook messages, Twitter, everything, emails, calls, all of those things. Thank you guys for sending us all of those, and like I said, this has been